LandRush is, generally speaking, open to the general public, but just at a more premium price. So it's an opportunity for somebody that isn't a rights holder, that isn't a trademark holder, to actually make a claim on a domain before it becomes open to the general public at a reasonable price point and general availability. In both Sunrise and LandRush, you tend to have multiple applicants. So if I take Sunrise, which is a great example, you will probably have multiple applicants for the term polo, because you'll have Volkswagen Polo making a claim. You will have Roundtree Polos, as in the suite, making a claim. And you'll probably have Ralph Lauren Polo also making a claim. All three of them perfectly legitimate rights holders. And what happens in that case is they go into an auction process and the highest bidder generally wins. That's not the way every domain launches, but it's a generally accepted process that most follow. Same thing happens in LandRush. If there's multiple applicants for, let's think of a great example, maybe let's say it was .com launching and it was computer.com, you know, bound to be a popular name, much desirable. There will be multiple applicants in LandRush, I'm sure, and they would go into an auction process to win that name. And then finally, once that's taken care of, the premium guys have had their pick of what they like and paid the relevant price. The rights holders have paid a fixed price for a trademark application. Then the remainder is put into general availability. And it's worth pointing out here that the majority is the remainder. General availability is the majority of what people look to order. So that's what happened in the final stage. You'll be able to order all three stages on 123 Reg: Sunrise, LandRush, and general availability. So if you've got a trademark, you'll be able to order from Sunrise. If you want to pay a premium for a certain domain, you can order at LandRush. Otherwise, you can place a pre-order for general availability. And at the end of the seminar, I'll explain how you can do that. You know, right now today, I'll walk you through that. So you know, let me go into a bit more detail about what gTLDs actually are. You know, as I think I said in the opening slide, they're the largest expansion of the domain name system we've ever seen. And ICANN have been working through that process for a great number of years, as I've gone through in a lot of detail already. There's been, you know, let's use the figure of 1,900 applications. I think as of today, there were exactly 1,930 applications in the end. There were some withdrawals, 70 or so of them, and some were objected to, you know, by local governments or certain bodies that didn't want to see, say, the Olympics being launched, and so on and so forth. We put a costing in this PowerPoint about $500,000 to apply. The actual application fees are near enough, or a little bit less than half of that actually. But in round terms, to be able to make your application and present it in the format that needs to be presented in, and follow through with the relevant funding that you need for 30 years, you're talking about $500,000 to make that application in the first place, and you know, proof of funding required. Out of those 1,930 applications, there are actually only 1,408 generic top-level domains. So there are a lot of contended applications, people that have applied for multiple domains. There are also a lot of what we refer to internally as .brands. So there are a lot of, I'm trying to give a good example, .Facebook, .Google, .Pepsi, and so on. And don't quote me on whether all of those are applicants, but you get the idea. .Cavern was definitely one of them, and so on. So a lot of brands that applied. You know, concerned, is the web going to change? Is it no longer going to be www.mydomain.com or mydomain.co.uk? Yeah, am I now going to be displaying just www.canon on my billboard ad, or will I just say www.mainwebsite.cavern, you know, on my billboard ad? So I think that there was nervousness amongst the brands as to how the net would change. And a lot of them were protected registrations for the brands, just to make sure you know, they were available to operate their brand in that fashion if they needed to. Because right now, ICANN haven't announced when the next application process will be, and it's closed right now for just the 1,930 that have applied. So this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity at the moment that we don't know when and if we'll see again. So out of those 1,408 strings then, a lot of them were contended. And to give you some examples of what I mean by contention, the largest contention I think was for .app, which had 13 applicants all applying for the same string. So they'd all paid their money to apply to ICANN to run that registry. There's loads of other examples. .shop had 9 applicants, and .art, which was a surprise to me, had 10 applicants. .home had 10 applicants. .inc had 11. .web, had I think 6 or 7. .ltd, very relevant to the UK market, that had 7. And in those contention sets, it varied on who was fighting for these domains. If I take the .web example, the big players in there, I think from memory, were Google, making their application alongside some other guys that are notable size. If I look at .mail, there were 7 in there. Amazon and Google were both a player in those applications. If I look at .limited, a lot of those were startup companies and some medium-sized players, I would say. So those contention sets varied. And then on top of the contention sets, where you had multiple applicants for the same TLD, you had a lot of domains that were uncontended. I talk about 7 applications for .mail, but there was only 1 applicant for .email. If you were uncontended, then in theory, you pretty much got allocated to the domain straight away, and I'll talk to that a bit more in a second. If you were contended, you need to go through an auction process to decide who's going to run the domain before you're then able to operate the domain and go through the process I described earlier of Sunrise, LandRush, and general availability. So a lot of the contention sets, are yet to be determined, and we as a registrar, aren't able to enter into a specific contract with a party running those yet, because it's yet to be determined who is the party that's running them. Some of them have been settled privately, auctions don't need to take place, and a lot of it's still panning out. So with some of these big generic names like .web and .shop, it's quite likely that you won't see their launch until later next year, if not beyond that, as this process, the contention gets taken care of. What we do know right now is, as of today, as of writing, I just got the numbers hot off the press just before coming on to this call. As of today, there are 31 new TLDs that have been delegated and are live in the root. You can, if the registry was open and selling the domain, in theory, you could buy that domain. It's live on the internet. There's 27 of those that are referred to as ASCII, plain English domains. Examples being graphics, guru, holdings, land, tattoo, sexy, today, tips, bike, camera, construction, and so on. And then there's 4 what we know as IDNs, internationalized domain names. These are script form domain names that, say for example, .com transliterated in Mandarin, for example. So there's 30 of these that have been delegated, 31 of these that have been delegated into the root as of today. That doesn't mean to say that we're going to be able to sell them to you and we're going to be able to manage them for you yet. It's now down to the registry operator for each of those to choose when they wish to launch them, but they certainly can launch them as of today. Before they get launched, these registry operators have to sign a contract with ICANN, and 159 of them have signed those contracts so far. So out of 1,408 TLDs, 159 have signed, and out of those 159 that have signed, 31 of those are committed to the root, and in theory we can supply that domain to you today. Needless to say, that process is going to carry on throughout the next number of years. We're going to have a lot more people signing their contracts, we're going to have a lot more domains being delegated to the root, and then once delegated to the root, we're going to get a lot more businesses working with us as a registrar to allow you to be able to buy and manage that domain name. That's a process that's going to go on and on over the next great number of years, and the order of which is definitely undetermined. And I'll tell you how we're going to help you work that out in a little while longer towards the end of the presentation. I'll explain where you can go and pre-order and show pre-interest and how you can stay up to date on what's going on here. So I think I spoke a little bit about the auction process earlier on. So I'm not going to go into a lot more detail here, but please don't get confused between these 2 different types of auction processes. You've got the one auction process where you need to, where you as a user of the domain name needs to decide at what point you want to try and register your domain. Are you a rights holder? Do you want to pay a premium at LandRush? Are you prepared to place a pre-order for general availability? And the other auction process is who is the actual operator of that domain going to be. So, for example, VeriSign is the name of the company that runs .com. It's not yet known who will be the company that's running some of these shorter, cooler, more generic words like .app, .cloud, .web, .pizza. .pizza had 4 applicants, and so on and so forth. And so all that will get worked out in the coming months, years. So why choose a new gTLD then? What does it what does it mean? You know, why is it important? You know, I'm quite happy with my .com. I'm quite happy with my .co.uk. Well, first and foremost, you need to think about the future. You know, the internet's grown at an astonishing rate. There were something like 8 million domains on the internet at the millennium, and there's now close, if not just over now, 250 million domains. That is a ridiculous explosion in the size of the internet. And availability of what you want is very limited. If you've ever tried to start a business or looked at ways to choose a domain name and a brand, it's tough. It's very tough to get the combination that you need. In our local space here right now, there's over 110 million .coms registered already, and there's over 10 million .co.uk or .uk is registered already. So trying to find the word that you want isn't necessarily always that possible without making up words or adding hyphens or adding words you don't want to your domain name. So this provides a great opportunity for you to get a domain name with a very relevant extension and the string that you're absolutely looking for. More importantly, it's going to make you unique. You're going to protect your brand. And I think most importantly, it allows you to protect how technology might change. You know, will Google list a .bike domain for a .bike website above a bicycleshop.com domain name? You know, I can't tell you the answer to that because I don't know, and Google haven't told us. But you know, search is important. Let's say that Google did make that decision. You'll be very well placed if you've made that right investment in your very discrete market. So they're vital, and I think there's no two ways about it. You know, putting aside the geographic names of .London, of .Wales and .Cymru and .Irish and .Berlin and so on, putting aside the very specific verticals of bikes and cameras and clothing and graphics and so on, there's also going to be some very, very successful just generic launches. So .web, you know, is clearly going to be a great success. .shop is clearly going to be a great success. And equally, we're going to get some curved balls, as I like to call them. You know, a lot of people say great things to me about .ninja. .ninja doesn't necessarily attract me, but certainly it's an extension that a lot of people are talking about. Same with .xyz. A lot of people are talking about .xyz. Short, generic, maybe not a domain that's appropriate for a business, but maybe a domain that is quite appropriate and useful for an individual. So there we go. That's what's happening there. Which ones are going to launch first? I think I think it's quite tough to explain. You know, we definitely expect verticals to launch first. We definitely expect uncontended domains to launch first, and location specific are becoming more and more important. So, you know, I referenced those 31 earlier on today. You know, those are 31 that we know are launching. You know, they have signed their contracts with ICANN and they are delegated. Exactly when each of those 31 are going to launch is becoming clearer and clearer as registries define their plans to us. What you're going to see coming from us very shortly is your ability to pre-order your interest in the TLDs that we know are coming and that we know at what price. So really only these 31 at this stage. You're going to be able to register your pre-interest, and you can already do that today by going to gTLD.123-reg.co.uk. You can show your pre-interest in these TLDs. So you can show pre-interest in web or shop, and we'll keep you updated as to those plans evolve. But what you'll be able to do very shortly, we're hoping to launch it next week. You'll see that site evolve into not just showing your pre-interest, but also showing your pre-order. So for the domains where we know that you can pre-order, because we know what the price points will be and we know what all the different phases will be and how they will function, you'll be able to pre-order those. There are several sites out there that are offering you pre-orders right now. Those pre-orders, you know, are based on no information from the registry because they haven't provided that yet. So the pre-order can't have a price point to it. It can't have any terms to it because we don't know what those terms or those price points are for the registry. We are starting to know for the 31 that are delegated. Like I say, in the middle of next week, some of those 31 where we know that information, you will be able to pre-order. And not just pre-order, you'll be able to pre-order for each individual stage. So if you're a trademark holder, that's fine. Land rush, that's fine too. And for general availability. And that will be at gTLD.123-reg.co.uk. So in summary then, the new gTLD applications include all kinds of terms. They're generic terms, they're industry terms, they're location specific, they're brand names. They're 1,408 different combinations of words that you're going to be able to have right at the dot. It's absolutely vital you protect yourself in year one at the very least. If you're a pizza shop and you're not buying your dot pizza, you would be very crazy. Equally, if you run a restaurant and you're not buying .rest and .menu, it wouldn't be a wise thing to do. You absolutely should be protecting that space and protecting the innovation that we're bound to see in the use of domain names. Now they've become so much more widely used. We expect to see, obviously, the domain names that aren't contended to launch first, and those are largely verticals like photographer, estate, bike, camera, clothing, tattoo, tips today, ventures, voyage, land is one, guru, graphics. There's 27 ASCII ones that are right now in the route. We definitely expect those to be the ones that will launch over the next couple of quarters. And there's all of the IDNs, the internationalized domain names. There's about 100 of those local script languages. All of them have signed contracts with ICANN, but only 4 of them have chosen to be in the route right now. It's the registry's decision when they want to go into the route. Only 4 of them have gone into the route so far, and I would suspect out of those 4, well, in fact, I know out of those 4, none of them have delivered plans and when they intend to actually launch the registry. So it's a very iterative process that you definitely need to keep yourself abreast of. To keep up to date, gtld.123-reg.co.uk, show your expression of interest in the domains that interest you, and we'll keep you updated. And equally, keep on an eye on that site over the coming weeks, and you'll be able to pre-order the strings that we have the right information on as and when that information becomes available. I hope that was of interest. So I guess I'd like to turn the floor now over to Thomas to fire away with some questions. Feel free to put your questions into the chat boxes or the Q&A boxes to Thomas.
Thank you very much, Matt. The first question that we have is kind of looking at, so what would be your, your key advice to a small business, who's seen the advertising about new gTLDs? What's your kind of, first 3 points of advice for those businesses?
Well, I think first and foremost, be very careful who you pre-order from, because hopefully by providing you the details that I provided you today, you can see this isn't a done deal. It's far from a done deal. And what I think I'm quite proud of at the Host Europe Group is the way that we've approached this is with the strongest of ethics. So, when we tell you a domain is available to pre-order, it really is. And the price point in which we tell you it's available to pre-order really is the correct price point. Before that, show your pre-interest and let us keep staying in dialogue with you. And then I think secondly, and maybe this isn't 3 points, I think secondly, you've got to be in it to win it. And we're talking about a very small spend of your wallet, for most of these. That could place you in a fantastic position for the future. I really regret not being that guy in the 90s that didn't go and register 50,000 .coms for the boom that they've become. Believe me, those guys do exist. There's a few very, very famous ones that I deal with day to day that did register huge portfolios of very, very good names. Make sure that your business is protected for that opportunity, because I can't tell you how that evolution is going to happen. But it's very clear there will be some sort of evolution, because we're going from having 20 odd domains plus the ccTLDs on the internet to 1,408 of them. That will cause a revolution.
Thanks very much for that, Matt. So we have now a question from Michelle Jackson-Rowe, who's asking kind of, I guess, a bit about domain swapping here. So what she's asking is, will there be better restrictions in place so that people can't just buy up new domains and then sit on them?
Yes and no. There are restrictions in place for trademark holders. So, if you have a right to a trademark, e.g., my company was called Microsoft, let's say, then yes, I am well protected. And anybody that tries to register in my space, if I haven't registered it myself, I will be notified that registration has taken place. and that's a brand new system called the Trademark Clearinghouse that's been put into place for exactly this process. Will that stop someone registering a domain that you would quite like, a generic word that's maybe not trademarked and doesn't have any kind of established right, like glass or printer or telephone? No. Those guys will still be able to speculate and go by those names, like the next person would. I would suggest some of those category names, if you're in any of those spaces, are good names to get. And there's some great examples of that in the UK. Off the top of my head, news.co.uk, I think goes to the Sunday Times from memory, or one of the main sites. Breakfast.co.uk used to go to Kellogg's, it still does. Headphones used to go to Sennheiser. Loans.co.uk goes to the Bank of America site. Those category killer names are quite important, and they can't be protected. And I'm sure you will see some speculators, maybe even some of yourselves, buying those domains and putting them to good use and hopefully not bad use.
Okay, thank you, Matt. So, again, looking at, just picking up on something that you mentioned earlier, would it be okay if you just ran through those gTLDs that you thought were going to be the biggest successes and ones that maybe small businesses should be looking at?
Oh, Thomas, you're putting me on the line there. I think, it's very tough to call because it's very clear that the most popular domains will be the ones that are most contended. And, if I take the most popular TLD, it was .app, with 13 applicants. They're paying $500 million, or $500,000, should I say, to apply for that domain. Now, there's some very strong players in there, and let's assume that goes to auctions and it gets sold between those 13 parties at say, $200 million. That's going to look very differently to an uncontended applicant that only paid $500,000 for his domain name. So the .app that I may have bought, if it was going to come to me at a £10, £15 price point, might not be something I'll buy at £1,000. So it's hard to answer that question because until we know the business models for each of these registries, it's hard to know whether that success is going to be everything we would like it to be, or you guys would like it to be, or otherwise. Out of the uncontended applicants, so the ones that aren't in contention sets between all of them, it's hard to give you one, to be honest, because most of the ones that are uncontended are very vertically based. And if I was a plumber, I would definitely be applying for my domain name .plumbing. If I was an electrician, I would definitely be applying for my domain name .electrician, assuming there is a .electrician or a .contractors or so on. Outside of the small business space and the generic space, I think the one that I like the most, bar none, has to be XYZ. I think it's very personable. I think it's very short. I think it's very generic. And I think it's going to be very successful, and I think it's going to come to us at a price point that's going to be very very consumer friendly.
Thanks for that, Matt. So we have another question here from Catherine Gold. So she's asking at gTLD.123-roads.co.uk. We're asking people to select each domain individually to register for. Will there be a time where 123reg we will give news on more or every domain that we will sell to our customers?
Yes, there will. I mean, our general marketing team that market and talk to everybody about gTLDs, just as they did in communicating seminar, will communicate to you on TLDs en masse. Clearly, we don't want to spam our customers. We don't want to talk to you about all 1,408 of them. But the key launch events, the ones that we think you're really going to be interested in, we're going to make sure we let you know. The pre-interest site is to allow you to show a specific interest. Maybe you have a specific interest in tattoos, so you want to show a pre-interest in tattoos. Maybe you think there's a big opportunity in the dating market, so you want to show a pre-interest in boxing, and so on and so forth. It's for us to allow you to have a specific to be kept up to date on specific TLDs of interest to you, and then of course that site will evolve over the next week. I think it's going to launch in the next week to allow you to actually place a binding and real pre-order at a known price point for any one of the 3 stages, for any one of the 27 or so domains that we know about are absolutely going to launch in the next couple of quarters. And by the way, I should add that's going to live and breathe. So you'll see every day more TLDs being turned over from being just pre-interest to actually being able to make a pre-order. So as we know more from the registries, and they give us price points, they give us launch dates, and they tell us how their different stages are going to work, then you'll see them changing colour and go from being pre-interest to pre-order. And that will become much clearer next week when you can see the new version of the site.
Thanks for that, Matt. So another question is, does ICANN have a publicity program around these new domains?
They have an extensive publicity program, would you believe? So they've engaged Edelman worldwide, I think, actually. And Edelman are a very famous PR company, one of the top PR agencies in the world, actually. And to reach out to, world over, reach out and to tell people what's happening. Clearly, it's a very big topic, to market and discuss. Few brands would take on a single worldwide marketing campaign at any one time, and that's exactly what I kind of done. So it may feel a little bit, like their publicity isn't as good as it could be. But believe me, they are spending millions on worldwide PR for new gTLDs. And of course, their registrars, ourselves included, are equally spending a lot of time, a lot of money, helping to educate our users on this process, exactly what we're doing here with this webinar.
Thanks for that, Matt. So we've Catherine Gold is asking another question, and she's asking whether there is a list of the 27 delegated ASC2 domains that are likely to come first. Do we have any information on that, or is that something we can provide information on after this webinar?
There isn't a list as such. It's evolving rapidly, but we can definitely share with everyone on this webinar what that list of 27 is right now. But those are the 27 that are in the root. So where it's very likely that you will find an entry of some form for that domain. Normally, the first one to be in the root would be NIC, NIC dot the domain name, because NIC standing for basically the registry themselves. But yeah, we can send a list around to everybody, post this session, and also as that pre-order site starts to liven up next week, you'll be able to see that information in real time as it changes.
Thanks again for that, Matt. So another question is looking at the change to the .uk. So do you think, while not one of the ICANN domains, how do you see this .uk change? And do you think it would be, is it part of the new gTLD strategy? And is it going to be great for businesses in the UK?
That's a little bit off topic, Thomas, but I'm happy to answer it. Well done to whoever slotted that question and got Tom to raise it with. Clearly it's separate for this new gTLD process. That's a registry decision. It's not governed by ICANN, it's governed by the local registrar. Do I have a view on it? No, I don't really have a view on it. What we do know is that last week the registry told us that it's going ahead. And that you will be able to buy a domain name .uk. I think they stated in their press release sometime this coming year, which is the same information that we know and have. Any existing owners of .co.uk domain names actually .co.uk domain names will have the right to secure their domain name before it goes for sale to the general public. So if I own matt.co.uk, then I will be communicated with that I have the right to own matt.uk and would I like to have it before the general public then get an opportunity to buy that domain name. So they've done a great job of protecting the existing registrants. And outside of that, we know it's going to be at similar price points, if not the same price points as co.uk domain names, at a wholesale level to us. That's about the information that I can share with you right now. But that's an exciting development for the UK registry, and clearly will mean a shorter domain name.
Perfect, thank you for that. So if anyone else has some if you have any more questions, we'd be more than happy to send them to Matt. Just one final question from me, Matt. It's kind of it's probably something that we've touched upon a few times, but what advice could you just give, just quickly to a small business?
I think the key bit of advice is those words I used earlier on. You have to get it to win it. This is the biggest evolution of the addressing system of the internet. We've seen in my lifetime. 1,408 different domain names. Those people that sit on the sidelines and say, "Oh, .com is always going to prevail," or .co.uk is always going to prevail. Maybe it will, but it's certainly unknown, and there's certainly odds that are very much stacked against it. So I think we will see a changing landscape in the internet space. How that's going to evolve, I couldn't tell you, but I definitely don't have a crystal ball to be able to work that out. But there clearly is going to be change, and I think if you don't make your application for your name and have protected your opportunity there, I think it's very likely. I think you'll live to regret it.
Well, thank you very much, Matt. I believe we've come to the end of our Q&A session. So I'd just like to thank you again for your time today, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that have learned a lot and really can place some kind of strategy for their own businesses. So thank you again for taking your time out. And just to the few people that had a few sound issues, I've taken your email addresses and we'll send the sound recording to you. And for everybody else, we'll also send the webinar across to everyone who registered for the event. So again, thank you very much for joining us today, and please look in your inboxes for the recording of the webinar. If you do have any further questions, you can tweet us at 123reg, and we'll be happy to get back to you. So I'd like to say thank you again, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Thomas, and thanks very much to everyone for joining. Very much appreciated, and hope it was enjoyable.